Hi, he's Frank Sinatra.
Hi, he's Dean Martin.
Kamal's here.
Hi, we're Europe! Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year!
It's Jesse James Decker.
This is Anna Wilson, and you're listening to the Sounds of Christmas
podcast.
Welcome to the Sounds of Christmas podcast. I'm Ken Kessler. If you're new to this podcast, I want to start by saying thanks for joining us. If you're not new, welcome back. Either way, I'm glad you're here. Now, to avoid any confusion, I want to start off by saying there won't be any music played here. This is a place for conversation. I'll talk about Christmas music and some related topics, sometimes by myself and sometimes with guests. If you're looking for music, just go to soundsofchristmas.com and click on the tree or the player on the front page or on the Listen Now page. We play the best variety of Christmas music all year long. Well, except in October, when we play the best variety of Halloween music. Frank Sinatra's birthday just passed, but I think about him and his music often, especially at this time of year. So I thought it was about time that I did an episode devoted to Frank and his Christmas music legacy. Frank Sinatra's first Christmas release was a single of White Christmas, which came out in 1944, and it made it all the way to number 7 on the charts. In 1946, he released a single with Silent Night and Jingle Bells. And this version of Jingle Bells, accompanied by the Ken Lane Singers, is not the version most of us know. The one where they spell out the title Jinglebells. You know, that one. That one wouldn't be recorded for another 10 years. A couple years later, in 1948, Frank released his first Christmas album. It was called Christmas Songs by Sinatra. And this was his third album overall. It was released as a 78 album set and a 10-inch LP, featuring a collection of 8 holiday songs. So it wasn't really an album. Today we'd just say it was an EP. A compilation album was released in 1994, including the songs released on this album, with 3 original takes, 5 previously unreleased alternate takes, along with other Christmas songs from his years recording at Columbia. Columbia reissued the album several times in later years with alternate track listings and different artwork. 1957 saw the first 12-inch release as Christmas Dreaming, with the addition of the song Christmas Dreaming a little early this year, and Let It Snow, Let It Snow, Let It Snow, though Let It Snow was dropped from later releases when the album was reissued and retitled Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas, and that was in 1966. That 1966 version peaked at number 42 on Billboard's Best Bets for Christmas album chart. A stylized papercraft version of the LP album with its original 1948 Christmas tree cover art is prominently featured in the official music video for Frank's Let It Snow, Let It Snow, Let It Snow. However, the 1948 version of the album didn't contain that song. His version of Let It Snow would come out a couple years later as a single in 1950. A few years after that, in 1954, he released the single of the Christmas Waltz. And then a few years after that, 1957, Frank released his second Christmas album, A Jolly Christmas. It was actually his first full-length Christmas album. It featured the Ralph Brewster Singers along with an orchestra conducted by Gordon Jenkins. Side 1 was all secular holiday songs, and side 2 was religious Christmas carols. Capitol reissued the album in 1965 with different cover art and a new title, The Sinatra Christmas Album, both of which also featured on the album's initial 1987 compact disc pressing. The original title and cover were eventually restored for subsequent CD pressings in 1990 and 1999. In 2001, the album art was altered from its 1957 version. CD also included as a bonus track the original 1954 single of The Christmas Waltz. In 2007, that album was reissued again with a 50th anniversary banner placed atop the 2001 cover art and an additional bonus track, a vintage radio PSA that Frank did for the American Lung Association's Christmas Seals campaign. Back to 1957 and the Jolly Christmas album, Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas, Jingle Bells, and Mistletoe and Holly were the 3 songs that made their way to radio, and Jingle Bells actually made it to number 20 on the Hot 100 chart. Next Christmas single from Frank Sinatra was Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas, again, this one in 1963. And I say again, being that song again it wasn't a new song called Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas again. Frank's more popular version of Jingle Bells has shown up on Billboard's holiday chart every year since they started doing the chart in 2012, and so is his version of Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas. His version of Let It Snow has shown up every year since 2013. Now, in 1964, Frank did an album with Bing Crosby and Fred Waring and the Pennsylvanians called The 12 Songs of Christmas. This album was reissued as White Christmas on a budget label in 1973. While the album has never been reissued as a standalone CD, it was included in a special 2-CD Christmas edition of the Frank Sinatra compilation Nothing But the Best in 2008. On the 12 Songs of Christmas, Frank sang on 5 tracks, 2 with Bing and 3 with Fred Waring. The Bing tracks were Go Tell It on the Mountain and We Wish You the Merriest. The other songs with Fred were An Old-Fashioned Christmas, The Little Drummer Boy, and I Heard the Bells on Christmas Day. I Heard the Bells and We Wish You the Merriest were the 2 songs that made it to radio. In 1968, Frank released, with a little help from his family, The Sinatra Family Wish You a Merry Christmas. Frank was joined by his children, Frank Jr., Nancy, and Tina on this one. Album was released on vinyl LP, reel-to-reel, and 8-track. Then it went out of print for decades before it was finally re-released on CD in 1999. Frank Sr., Nancy, and Tina recorded all their contributions in the studio together. Frank Jr. was out on tour, and he added his singing later to those pre-recorded tracks. Closing song, The 12 Days of Christmas, has different lyrics sung by Frank's children, honoring their father with their gifts to him, and then Frank comes in singing the final verse and chorus solo. Frank performed on 5 of the 10 songs on this album. I Wouldn't Trade Christmas and The Bells of Christmas. He performed that with Frank Jr., Nancy, and Tina. Whatever Happened to Christmas and The Christmas Waltz were solo performances by Frank Sinatra. And then, as I mentioned, all of them together on the 12 Days of Christmas to close out the album. The song Whatever Happened to Christmas was the one that made its way to radio. 1992, Frank did a duet, sort of, with Cyndi Lauper on Santa Claus is Coming to Town for the second very special Christmas album. And that has shown up most years on Billboard's Holiday Songs chart. Frank's 1947 solo version of that song has made it onto the charts the last couple years. Now, I did say sort of a duet because as Frank got into doing the duets albums, what it really amounted to was a bunch of popular singers of the day who came in and recorded their parts played against recordings of Frank on these other songs. And that's the case with Santa Claus is Coming to Town, as well as a bunch of others. I hope I didn't spoil the magic for you. In 2002, a Rat Pack Christmas was released, and this one featured songs performed by Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, and Sammy Davis Jr., though not together. Though that would have been a pretty cool album if they had ever done that. Now, 2 of the songs did feature Frank and Dean together. That was A Marshmallow World and Auld Lang Syne. And I think that's it. I apologize if I miss anything, but as you could tell following through there, it does get a little confusing. And if you have a Frank Sinatra album that you love and you play every year and it didn't have the title of one of the things I suggested, you can see that there were lots of reissues and changes to artwork and changes to album titles and track listings and everything over the years. So don't fret. Don't think I missed something that you love. It was probably one of these releases. That said, I do apologize if I missed anything, but at least this gives you a pretty good idea of the rich Christmas music legacy that Frank Sinatra has left for us. And even though I'm a couple days late with this, happy birthday, Frank. We still miss you. Thanks so much for listening and for continuing to support the Sounds of Christmas station and podcast. I already told you how to listen to the station, and you're listening to the podcast now, so my work here is really just about done. All of our episodes are available on the Sounds of Christmas website. Just click the podcast tab. And we also have a Linktree page that lists most, if not all, of the sites that stream our podcast. So you can look through, find your favorite, click on over and subscribe, and then you'll never miss another episode. If you have comments or suggestions on this episode, previous episodes, or the Sounds of Christmas station, feel free to reach out to me on social media or through the website. Thanks again. And may you always believe in Santa Claus.